everybody, and welcome to Fresh Cuts 2025 Top 10 Horror Movies of the Year. I had to catch myself because I almost said 2026 since we are technically into the new year. But yeah, this is our top 10 show that we do at the end of every year, at the beginning of the following year, just depending on timing. So we will get into it momentarily, but first, let me introduce my co hosts that have been here the entire year. First, he's been with me since the beginning. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, top 10 seekers. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Starting to feel more like myself. I'm probably, I still got a lingering cough, but for the most part, I'm probably like 95%. So it's feeling good and ready to talk about my favorite movies of the year.
All right, and then also with us, Don and Nelly. What's up, Don?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right, so with the top 10 show, there's not a whole bunch of housekeeping or anything to get into, but I thought maybe I think in the previous top 10 shows, we kind of gave like a year overview about what we thought about horror for the year. So if we want to start out with that, Venom, what do you think of 2025 overall?
I've heard a lot of talk about people calling this a weak year in horror, and looking at my total list of all the movies I watched this year, I will admit that I had a lot less eight and nines this year. I only had one 10. And if you've been listening to our shows, you probably already know what that is. But yeah, not as many eights and nines as usual, but the ones that I really loved just really just made the year for me. So all the movies on my top 10, including my honorable mentions, definitely elevated the year for me. I hate calling a year in horror weak. I know it seems to be the cool thing to do nowadays, but it's just one of those things where you just got to seek out the hidden gems. And this year, just like most years, because not every year can be 2018, unfortunately. But for every year that's not 2018, there's always, diamonds in the rough, hidden gems that you just got to seek out. Maybe you got to, scour the oddball horror apps, like Screambox or something like that. Or maybe you got to dig deep into foreign horror to find those gems that make the year worth watching. uh Admittedly, yes, less eights and nines on my list, but I still shudder to call this a weak year. Because I'm sure that narrative is already out there, so there's no need for me to really add to it. I am going to say, though, that my number one movie this year would have been my number one movie in almost any year of my podcasting life, which officially hit 10 years this year. I've now officially been podcasting for 10 years. Once we hit 2026, this is my 10th year of podcasting. So, and with every year, I find the movies that I love, and this year is no exception. And on my rewatches over the last 2-3 weeks, it's really reminded me that that upper echelon of 2025 is still just as good as any other previous year. It is definitely like, the sixes and sevens and 5 out of 10s that, we had an abundance of this year, which, for some people is going to bring the year down. But for me, I try to be an eternal optimist. I try not to be a pessimist. And ultimately, I still found great movies this year. I found some good middle of the road movies that, aren't top 10 candidates by any stretch, but still entertained me greatly. So, you know, it's 2025 is not a year whose praises whose I won't be singing songs or writing poetry about 2025 necessarily, but it still entertained me greatly. And I'm still very happy to be a horror podcaster in 2025. So, yeah, I still enjoyed the year. I'll leave it at that. So, getting into the list, I guess, let's get right into it, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, my top 10 might be a little bit of a surprise, as it is only the second movie that got released in 2025. It's a movie that once other once we hit the end of January, I didn't hear anybody talk about this movie. And I honestly didn't think it was going to make my top 10, but it literally came in just edging out VHS Halloween for the number 10 spot. And that is Lee Winnell's Wolfman remake. Yes, this movie absolutely worked for me. I know a lot of people were disappointed in this movie. Not a lot of gore, not a lot of kills, more of a family drama than anything else. But for whatever it's worth, Chris Abbott and Julia Garner gave us great performances. And by the way, what a year Julia Garner had. Julia Garner's 2025 was just like Dan Stevens' 2024, where Dan Stevens was in a few genre films, but then he also did big budget action movies like Godzilla versus Kong, New Empire, and then here comes Julia Gardner this year with Wolfman. She was the Silver Surfer in my favorite non-horror film of the year, The Fantastic Four: The First Steps. And she's in another horror film that I'm sure many of us, if not all three of us, will talk about later in the episode. So yeah, very happy to see Julia Garner, come into her own this year. Like I said, much like Dan Stevens did in 2024. And even though The Wolfman may have been more of a drama than a horror film, what it gave us, I genuinely enjoyed. I love the filmmaking in this. I love the POV shots of the Wolfman, the way that he sees things, the way that he hears things, the way that he comprehends things. It really all worked for me. I thought Julia Garner's performance, as always, was stellar as the doting wife trying to help her sick husband. Great performance from Matilda Firth as the daughter. So yeah, overall, Wolfman really, really worked for me, and I would not be surprised if no one else talks about that on this episode. But yeah, my number 10 for 2025 is Lee Winnell's Wolfman. By the way, Lee Winnell remaking The Invisible Man and now The Wolfman, I'm actually down for Lee Winnell to go ahead and remake more Universal monster movies. Stay away from Dracula, though. That's the only thing I ask. But man, The Mummy, Invisible Man. I mean, there's so many options out there, and Lee Winnell's really showing that he knows how to remake these movies. So yeah, keep them coming.
Well, there's already a Mummy reboot coming out from Lee Cronin, so that's what
Yeah,
he.
I know with the original cast from the '90s Mummy
No,
movies, which
it's different. It's not that one.
oh, well, then we're getting two Mummy movies then, because I know that the original cast of The Mummy Returns is back for the
Mm-hmm.
what 1, 2, 3, the fourth
Fourth,
chapter of that franchise. So yeah, I'm
yeah.
down for it. So
All right.
Michael.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise, but cool. Dawn, I guess 2025 overview and your number 10.
All right. Well, for those of you that are regular listeners, you will find that this is no surprise. But in case you're new here, I am still in the midst of collating my list. My list that I'm going to be presenting here tonight is not going to be my overall top 10 of the year. It is going to be my top 10 of films that were covered on Fresh Cuts only. So I will have a very different list when it comes time for me to publish my actual list. It'll be done in a couple of weeks as of you hear this, but just want to put that out there first and foremost. 2025, I think it was kind of it's not quite the doldrums that we hit 2022, 2023, where we were still really struggling from post-pandemic films, not really getting much in the way of genuinely good stuff. The top films that those years were above average to, yeah, I didn't really hate that, but it wasn't really like good or great or memorable or um I I'd have to go end up looking back to see what I actually rated for some of those years because I don't know like what my top tens would be compared to something like 2020 where I still pretty vividly remember my list from that year, or say 2024, where I thought that was a really good year and we had a lot of really good high quality stuff that was on display that year. So it's not quite as bad. Like I said, 2022 and 23 were kind of like really, really struggling to get something out. 25 was a little bit better, but again, it was one of those where there wasn't a huge crop of standout titles. Like there was some good stuff. Admittedly, my list is still pretty heavily in the 8 out of 9, 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 kind of range. But generally, my lists are usually a little bit more. There's a little bit more top heavy kind of picks to choose from. And we don't really get that this year. We still have a lot of mid tier stuff, I think, especially towards the back end, um, which I guess I will start off right now. My number 10 is Clown in a Cornfield. Um, I don't think it was necessarily a great adaptation of the novel. I've actually gone back and read it. There's a few big differences. I won't really spoil that just in case. There's people far better than me to detail that. Just because I don't really remember how closely the movie was from the book, as close as I read it. But I still had a fun enough time with it. The teens are aggravating and annoying, but again, a lot of that is generational. But other than that, I think it works well when you consider the fact that as a slasher, it does slash enough to where it's not aggravating to the point of missing what it needs to do. It's still really solid in that regard. Fun enough pacing, fun enough time to where it's not a slog to get through. And yeah, it's a decent enough attempt at a modern slasher. There is definitely, like I said, some missteps here and there, but there's far worse, 90s slasher throwbacks out there. This is still fun enough to where it deserves a watch. So number 10 for me is Clown in a Cornfield.
Yeah, not too bad a slasher. I mean, I didn't necessarily mind the big reveal of, what was going on in that town. My biggest issue with that movie, and I think I highlighted that during the Fresh Cuts review, was just the fact that the main antagonist, the one who was, basically running the show, just walks off screen and we never see him again. So basically, he
Yeah,
doesn't get any
that's
kind of comeuppance. I don't know if the book handles that better or if there's a deleted scene. Like maybe there's a scene that hit the cutting room floor that actually gives us that little bit of closure. But, that was really my biggest complaint about the movie. Overall, it was mildly fun.
yeah.
Okay. So for me, 2025, I would personally consider it like an okay year. I think it's kind of top heavy, as in like the top movies I really liked. But when I look at my top 10 list, I'm like, after about five, probably the next like 10 to 15 could be interchangeable. My list is probably going to possibly not include some notable movies, and it's not because I didn't like them, it's just because I didn't think there was a lot of movies separating themselves from the pack this year. If we don't personally do it on this show, but I know some shows will follow up their top 10 with like 11 through 20 or even 11 through 15. If we did that, then I think pretty much every notable movie would fall there. It's just they're kind of outside my top 10, more by happenstance, without like getting into like specific details on everything. So, starting with my number 10, I mean, this is kind of an example because it was between this and one that I liked for similar reasons. And it kind of came down to the wire which one was going to be 10 and which one was going to be an honorable mention. And this would be the small indie movie Scared Shitless. This is a small story with cool practical effects. I found the characters pretty funny and entertaining, and I just had a real fun time with it. and this was kind of a later year watch. Um, I kind of sat on it because I wasn't expecting much out of it, at least not enough to be list consideration, but I had been finished with most of my watching and I hadn't got to it yet. So when I watched it, it just kept being more fun than I expected all the way through. My main concern was like, oh, the gimmick or what's going on is going to grow tired through the running time, but it actually didn't, and it held up through the running time, and I just had a really fun time with it. So that's my number 10. All right, back to you, Venom.
All right, coming in at number 9 is my the only movie that we did not review on Fresh Cuts in my top 10. It is also my favorite found footage movie of the year, though found footage purists might say that this should be considered more mockumentary than a pure found footage, something like Frogman, or the first half of Shelby Oaks. But I absolutely love mockumentaries. I like documentaries, so anytime I get a cinematic presentation of a fake documentary, I usually am really on board for it. And this one I actually got to see in theaters. I got, yeah, obviously living in Los Angeles, I got kind of lucky. But this one is a mockumentary about the serial killer known as Mr. Shiny. So my number 9 of 2025 is Strange Harvest. I really enjoyed this movie. And it's funny too, because it's not even the horror or the gore or the kills. It's just the mockumentary presentation. It just worked so well for me. Like, I mean, if you didn't tell me that this was fake, I would believe that this was actual footage we were watching, especially that bedroom kill. The teenage girl in her bedroom was one of the most visceral, realistic things I'd seen in a, mockumentary in a very long time. So yeah, I unapologetically love this movie, had a great time with it, got to see it twice in theaters. The physical media is on my wish list, so I will be picking that up very, very soon. So yeah, not much more I can say. Just a really, really good documentary, very dark, very um it's got some, for a mockumentary, it's got some great tension, some great atmosphere. And Mr. Shiny as a, movie killer, I thought was great, not too over the top with his craziness, with, his insanity. It just, it was just even keel enough that it worked for me. So yeah, unapologetically, my number 9 is Strange Harvest.
Cool, good pick. All right, Don, number 9.
All right, number 9 for me. This was one that I was a little surprised by how much I liked it. Normally, I'm not really a big fan of this kind of style. I don't usually tend to gravitate to the psychological character study as much as a lot of people. A lot of people tend to appreciate this style a little bit more than I do. I tend to find them kind of bland and boring. Unless you have something little bit a cut above cut above the rest, and that's kind of what this one does. And my number 9 is Grafted. I
Ah,
kind of, yeah, I really like this one. I like the infusion of folklore into this one. You don't necessarily get the darker side of the perfect child syndrome that we get in a lot of Asian culture stories. And I really like the way that this explores body horror and the way that it does with mixing what's going on with a little bit of a slasher, a little bit of this mad doctor stereotype, a little bit of um, commentary on pressuring your child and what's going on, what's going to happen if you push them to the brink. I really like the way that it plays with a lot of these different elements. Now, again, it's not normally a style that I really gravitate to, so I do have some issues with it. But it was fun enough for me that I didn't mind it as much as I thought it would. So, number 9 for me is Grafted.
nice. All right. So For me, number nine, this might be the one where some people might hedge on calling it horror, but I think it's horror. It's dark, it's dystopian. It just keeps getting more depressing as the movie goes, as we drop characters from the screen. And I think it all leads to a satisfying conclusion, and that would be The Long Walk. Um, I was a little worried when I initially saw or went to go see the movie because I when you have these types of movies and you know anything about them going in, sometimes it's like, okay, we sort of know or can guess like which characters are at least going to be there in the third act. So it's kind of a challenge to make sure you still have a good story with good characters and circumstances. So on your way getting to the characters that you assume were going to be there, it still makes for an entertaining movie along that journey. And I thought this did a great job of that. I thought the scenarios, the stories, what we learned about everyone on the way was fantastic, and it maintained the dark tone, and I loved the characters' motivations. While changes were made from the book, I think they were justified for the movie. And yeah, overall, fun. Well, fun is maybe the wrong word, but a well made, crafted movie. So, number nine is A Long Walk. Back to you, Venom.
Nice. I'll discuss that one later. All right. So we're coming in at number eight. And I think, right, if I, yeah, this is my only foreign film on my top 10 list this year. Something else that's kind of surprising. I usually have at least two or three foreign films, because especially stuff that like Indonesia has been putting out, and obviously Korea kicks ass at, zombie horror and things like that. But yeah, this one dropped on Netflix. We did review it here on the show. I'm not even going to attempt to try its original title. But this one actually can be found under two different titles in English. If you look for it on Netflix, you will find it as The Curse of the Seven Seas. But in certain markets, it's also called Curse of the Seven Oceans, which, obviously it's the same thing, but I think Curse of the Seven Seas kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit better. This movie, man, I did not think it was going to make my top 10, but when I rewatched it, I had completely forgotten about the very first kill in the movie. And I always praise movies that have the balls to kill children on screen, but the death of Adi's little brother in this movie is one of the most brutal fucking child kills I think I've ever seen on screen. It was so intense. I actually rewound it on my rewatch this time because I had just forgotten how cool that death was. But then as the movie goes along, there's even more cool, intense deaths. The nails coming out of what's his face's daughter's neck, just amazing. And like I said, some of the other kills in the movie too, just really, really well done. Obviously, a movie about warring factions cursing each other back and forth. But like I said, the kills in this movie are what really made it for me. They're intense, they're brutal. Oh God, the barbed wire one too. The barbed wire coming out of the girl's mouth. I mean, yeah, this movie probably had some of my favorite kills of the year. So yeah, my only foreign film in my top 10 for 2025 comes in at number eight, and it is Curse of the Seven Seas.
We All right, Dawn. Eight.
All right. So my number eight. I kind of wanted to put this one a little bit higher. I wanted to, appreciate the fact that this was a franchise entry for a series that I've really enjoyed in the past. I really wanted to, acknowledge the fact that it's a pretty fun series, and I really had a lot of fun with it. There's a few missteps here and there, but overall, I really can't place it any higher than this. My number 8 is Final Destination Bloodlines. Yeah, it pretty much just does what you want the franchise to do. You have your fake outs, you have your, okay, well, they're going to set the character up to have something happen, and then, oh crap, now all of a sudden you're going to get this as the actual death instead, or you're just going to have these random moments of characters stumbling into something, and then, they get, killed off in quick fashion. I really enjoy the fact that it does, it's a Final Destination film. It does what it says on the tin. Um, the attempt at trying to tie the whole franchise together is a little. I think it's kind of like the one weak point where you could have made a little bit more of an obvious attempt to try to tie in the fact that all of the other disasters, Final Destination 5 leading into 1, 2, 3, and, 4 and all that. You could have made it a little bit more obvious that these were all intended to pay off what had happened in the restaurant, which I think they try to do, but it just kind of comes up a little lackluster and a little bit lacking. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a Final Destination film. You know what you're getting, you know what you're in store for. Um, Cast is maybe a little bit hit and miss, which is again another reason why it's down a little bit low on my list. But overall, I had enough fun with it that yeah, it was another fun addition to the series, and I'm excited that it got reborn. So number 8 for me is Final Destination Bloodlines.
I really enjoyed the first half of that movie. I liked the cold open, that took place decades before the events of the film. How it tied, the familial tie, with all the family members down the line over the decades, I thought was really well done. And of course, I mean, how could we forget the great scene with Tony Todd, his final scene on film, which was just so poignant, so just heartbreaking. I for how can I put this in words? I mean, I feel like it was a perfect send off for the man, for the man who may not have been the antagonist of this franchise, but obviously he's the kind of the connective tissue between all of the chapters. So yeah, but then after that is where I start to lose it. The third act kind of lost it for me, and then I flat out hated the ending. I did not like the ending at all. The ending felt very generic, cut and dry Final Destination, which I was really hoping for a franchise that had been away for a few years that they were going to try to do a little bit something different with the ending. But overall, I did enjoy the movie. Like I said, the first half more than the second half. But yeah, good choice.
All right, my number 8 is an anthology, latest entry of a franchise, and this one was themed around a holiday, probably many of our favorite holidays. Um, I pretty much liked every story, of course, to varying degrees, but I thought there was no weaknesses. And when you put out an anthology without any glaring weaknesses, it's probably going to be ranked pretty high for me. So my number 8 is VHS Halloween. Um, yeah. VHS Halloween is number 8. So back to you,
It's
Ryan.
funny because VHS Halloween was my number 8 going into my rewatches. Like once I was done watching movies for 2025, VHS was solidly at my number 8. But then after my rewatches, I agree with Mike. It is a fun entry. It even has a good wraparound, which is something that the VHS franchise has kind of lost sight of. After giving us a pretty good wraparounds in the first couple of movies, from VHS, viral all the way up to even VHS Beyond, it didn't really nail the wraparound. But this one, I thought they gave us a nice little narrative. Basically could have been its own segment. I mean, it kind of is, even though it's presented as a wraparound. It basically is just a fifth segment for the movie. So yeah, solid entry. Like I said, it literally just fell off my top 10 today, and I'm not exaggerating. Literally today, I finished my final rewatch, and like I said earlier, the Wolfman just bumped it off my list slightly. But yeah, I can't agree more. VHS Halloween was great. One of the better, probably a top three entry in the franchise. So yeah, great pick.
All right, number seven, Venom.
All right, number seven. We're going back to the franchises. This is a sequel to a movie that came out a couple of years ago, which was actually higher on my top 10 that year than the sequel is. A lot of people kind of looked down at this one, saying that it was a little bit derivative, that it was a concept that they had seen before. And ultimately, I understand what people are saying, but I think it's the kind of thing that once people saw those similarities, they might have just checked out of the movie. Whereas I just got more and more invested as the movie went along. So, my number seven of 2025 is The Black Phone 2. Yes, not as much Ethan Hawke in this one as the first movie, which is one of multiple reasons why it's this low on my list. If I remember correctly, The Black Phone was my number four movie of that year, and I praised that movie left and right. I still really enjoyed Black Phone 2. I do have some issues with it, especially with the second half of the movie. Once they actually get to Alpine Lake, there's a couple of sequences there that kind of leave me scratching my head. But ultimately, I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed the ending. It was gory. It was great to see the grabber's beginnings, even though we don't really get any kind of explanation as to why he's doing the things that he does, but just to be able to see where he got his start and, how he started, who his first victims were and everything else. I thought it was really well done. And holy shit, Finn, man. I mean, this kid's turning into a great actor because I mean, in the first movie, he was this timid yet resilient kid. And then in this movie, he is just a teenage badass who's constantly on edge, constantly thinking that he has to prove himself. He's ignoring his gift, which adds a little bit more to his personality. Like he accepts the fact that he can talk to the dead, but just the fact that he picks up the phone and just says, "Sorry, I can't help you." It's like he's accepting his gift, but he's ignoring it. Like he doesn't want to have to go through the same shit that he went through during the first movie. And of course, Finn's little sister was awesome as usual. So yeah, for me, just a half a step below the first one, but I still greatly enjoyed it. So yeah, my number seven is The Black Phone 2.
Nice. I actually like this one better than the first one, but over to you, Don. Number seven.
All right. Well, this one's probably going to be my controversial pick for the year. I'm kind of expecting this one to be a little bit higher on both of you guys' lists, just based on the conversation we had about it, the community's opinion on the film at large. It's not that I hate the movie. I have my valid reasons for disliking it, but I think it's going to be a little shocking to hear. Number seven for me is Frankenstein. Now, again, like a lot of what we discussed on the show, this could have been trimmed down to 155, 2 hours, maybe slightly pushing it to two, slightly pushing it just a little bit past two. But as it stands, it's still a little too long. It still has a little too much Mia Goth. It still has too many, sexy characters for me to really buy into this being this, 1800s era kind of cast and crew. But the technical prowess, the gore, the creature makeup, a lot of the, adaptations of the novel coming to fruition, I think that's really fun. And it's still enjoyable enough to where if you're not as hung up on those kinds of issues as I am, you're not going to be too bothered by it, which is kind of why I think I'm a little bit lower on this than a lot of people, because those kinds of factors do weigh in on whether or not I find the film fun or not. But yeah, again, not a bad film, but it's one that it didn't work for me as well as others. So number seven is Frankenstein.
ultimately, if a movie makes your top 10, you enjoyed it, you know? So, I mean, there's no need to defend your position. I've seen top 10s that don't have Frankenstein on it at all. And you know, that kind of leaves me scratching my head a little bit, especially, I mean, if we're talking objectively, you know, whether you like the story itself or not, at least, like, you know, Don was able to talk about its technical prowess, its beautiful cinematography, great effects. As a film, just as a, you know, film, it's beautiful, it's masterfully done. Guillermo hits another home run as usual. Ultimately, I think a lot of people had the same issue with this movie that I had with Nosferatu last year, that it was just a lot of been there, done that. Like, it didn't really do. In fact, I actually think Guillermo did more with Frankenstein as far as making it his own than even, you know, Robert Eggers did
Yeah,
with
I'd have
Nosferatu.
to I'd have to revisit it, and especially I'd have to revisit the other two Nosferatu adaptations to figure out for sure. But yeah, I buy this one a lot more as a Del Toro project than, you know, Eggers doing Nosferatu. That just seems more like a traditional vampire film from what I remember. But again, I'd have to
Mm.
revisit the other two adaptations to know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I actually watched the OG and the German one uh right before going to see this one, and or going to see the new Nosferatu. And yeah, like I said when we reviewed it, I just wish that Robert Eggers would have made the story more his own. Now, you don't have to drastically change the story, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. When a movie is being remade, I want to see something new. I want to see something original. I mean, a la Silent Night, Deadly Night, even though that's a movie that pissed off a lot of the hardcore Silent Night, Deadly Night fans, I absolutely loved it. I thought what they changed about it worked for me. It's not going to appear in my top 10 by any stretch, not even my top 20 if I had one, but it's still, you know, I will always praise when someone, you know, takes a shot. Even if they fail, at least they tried something new. So yeah, that's probably why I probably put Frankenstein slightly above Nosferatu. As much as I love Nosferatu, because Nosferatu was my number 3 of last year. So obviously, you know, I'm downplaying the story, but I still love the movie. So yeah, you know, what can I say?
All right, my number seven, looking at my whole list in front of me, I think this is the latest watch in the year to have made my list. So this is one out of Japan, and it kind of starts as a killer doll movie, a lot of tropes that you would find, um, a lot of neat camera tricks to facilitate the fact that like there's something weird going on. So basically, the setup is a woman or a mom, I guess, loses her daughter in a tragic accident, and I guess there's a company that will send you like a therapy doll in a sense. And in the first like 10-15 minutes, we get like two periods of like the years advancing, kind of like to bring you up to like the current time. So we get the tragic loss of the daughter, the doll arriving, and then them are the couple, the married couple, I believe, getting pregnant again with like a new baby. So that's kind of like the table setting. So when the movie like really starts and gets into it, they still have the therapy doll, but they've kind of like retired it, I think, to the closet or something just because they have the new baby. And so yeah, we start getting killer doll tropes. And at this point in the movie, like I would say through the first two acts, I was like, okay, this is a pretty like fun killer doll act, lots of tropes, but it's being well executed. It's creepy. But then the third act just kind of goes bonkers because where this kind of separates itself from just a standard killer doll movie is in like we start getting into like the origin because once they figure out the situation of what's going on, it's not as simple as just getting rid of the doll for reasons I won't get into. And then they start doing the research of like, well, where did this come from? Why is this happening? And it really kind of goes way more bonkers than I would have expected for what seemed like it was going to be a standard Killer Doll movie. And I was just really impressed, really entertained, and it ended up and being a lister for me. So, like I said, out of Japan, number seven is Dollhouse. I don't know if either of you guys have seen it or not, but I liked it a lot.
I have not, but I'm down for Japanese doll movies, so I might check it out.
Sounds familiar. Maybe it played at a festival that I was supposed to cover and I never got a screener for it. The synopsis is a little familiar. I'd have to look back in to check, but yeah, I think it was one that it kind of screened out here, and I was supposed to cover it, and they never sent me a screener for it, which I think that happened quite a bit for a lot of films I wanted to watch because it does sound familiar. But yeah, I can't say I've seen it.
All right, well, check it out if you got a chance. But for now, let's go back to Venom with his number six.
Man, we are just rolling along this year, aren't we? I love it. All right, my number six is going to be the first of two movies by this director to make my top 10, which is a first in my 10 years of podcasting that one director has two movies in my top 10. But uh, because it's one of my favorite modern directors and also the director of my number one movie from 2024, I definitely had some high expectations for the two films that he put out this year. The first was his attempt at a horror comedy, which absolutely worked for me, both as a comedy and the horror. I mean, we get some gory kills, we get some interesting characters, we get a really stupid human antagonist, but I'll forgive it because the performance was so done so well. You know, the performance of the main actor playing twins. So, of course, my number six of 2025 is Oz Perkins the Monkey. I absolutely love this one. This is one of only three 2025 movies that I ran out and bought on physical media as soon as it was released. I mean, literally, the week this came out, I picked up the 4K. I love the deleted scenes. The movie easily could have been well over 2 hours with some of the cool deleted scenes that Oz cut out of the film. But this movie also still has the designation of having my favorite kill of the year, and that is, of course, the final kill with the cheerleaders, the busload of cheerleaders. I've watched The Monkey at least 8 times now, and that ending still leaves me just cracking up. I absolutely love it. So yeah, my number six of 2025 is Oz Perkins the Monkey.
Nice. This is another one where it's like it seems like people are all over with this one, all over the place. I mean,
Yeah, I think some people just pigeonholed Oz Perkins as a serious horror director, you know, with stuff like The Black Coat's Daughter and Long Legs and, you know, I Am the Pretty Thing in the House, blah, blah, blah. But he took a shot at horror comedy, and I think he hit an absolute home run. I mean, I laughed. I got freaked out by some of the kills. I think the exploding diver in the pool was a stellar kill. Obviously, you know, a couple of the kills in the movie don't really make sense, like the teppanyaki kill, you know, at the Benihana place. When you really think about the logistics of that kill, it doesn't make any sense. But again, it's a horror comedy, so I'm gonna accept it. But yeah, that's why this movie isn't higher on my list. Like this movie was riding in my top three for pretty much the entirety of the year, but obviously, you know, a couple of late entries plus my rewatches kind of, you know, cleared my vision a little bit, and I realized that I might be a little bit biased because of how much I love this director, how much I love the original short story, you know, Stephen King's short story for the monkey. It all just worked for me. So yeah, yeah. What can I say? I love the monkey.
all right, number six, Dawn.
My number six is the monkey. Um, yeah,
Woo!
yeah, Venom said it best. Yeah, fun characters, great kills. Love the main guys. The extrapolating story about this cursed object, what's going on around it. Could have tied it up a little bit cleaner for me. I think there's some stumbling blocks with the story. But yeah, overall, I had enough fun with it. Great kills. The finale is a lot of fun. Does what it needs to. So number six for me is the monkey.
Come on, Mike, make it a trifecta.
Oh, it'd be so easy just to do it, but all right. My number six. This is probably going to be, well, I wouldn't even call it controversial in the sense of like, there's no, I mean, as far as all opinions valid, I just think that going into this year, I think this is one of the more anticipated movies, and the reaction to it was just all over the place. I know I kind of said that for the monkey, but I think there was less anticipation for the monkey just because it was a more unknown thing. But this one, it was the third movie in the series, I guess. And when the trailer hit, people thought the trailer looked excellent. Very good setup without really giving away too much. And people who made the original were back on board. So there was like all this hype around it. Then it comes out and it's like some people really liked it, some people hated it, some people were middle of the road on it. I really liked it. I think the main criticism, which maybe still holds, is it does feel like the first part of a planned trilogy, and that's always a tricky thing to do. Like, how are you going to have a self-contained story when everyone already knows ahead of time that more entries of it are coming and have to connect to it? But after I watched it and like we did our episode on it, and I went and just like read reviews, read some analysis, and I watched it again, and it just worked so much more for me on the second watch, and that's 28 years later. Um, I I just thought it was well executed, and a lot of the issues I had on the first time watch, they just kind of went away on the second watch. And it's funny because like a lot of the criticisms I hear about it, I don't really think are incorrect. Maybe it just didn't bother me as much. And maybe the second watch kind of solidified that. But yeah, 28 years later is my number six. And
That is
into
surprising, I gotta
five.
say, because you mentioned before you talked about the Long Walk, you said that that might be a controversial pick, and I completely disagree. The Long Walk is 100% horror to me. I don't care. Yes, there's no supernatural element, there's no monster, there's no slasher, there's no virus, whatever the case may be. But what those boys go through in that movie is 100% horror, and the fact that the major, brilliantly played by Mark Hamill, is a horror villain. I don't care. I mean, he is the gunman. I mean, how many people did he himself kill in that movie? At least three or four. So, yeah, I totally disagree on the controversial aspect of the long walk, but I will agree with you on the controversial aspect of 28 years later, because I don't remember you liking the movie that much as much when we reviewed it. Now, you said that on second watch, it kind of, your ranking kind of went up on it. I did give it a second watch. And for me, the issues that I had with it the first time, I still have with it. I love the first half of the film. I do like Ray Fiennes in the movie. I think he does great. Despite the zombie penis that we constantly have to deal with throughout the film, I still enjoyed it. It's just the Jimmy, the ending scene, it just ruined the entire movie for me. And I understand that it's setting up the next chapter of the film, which I'm sure that trailer's been out for a while now, so I'm sure you folks have all seen it. Obviously, I don't watch trailers, but I'm not looking forward to the next chapter because I'm worried that that whole Jimmy faction is going to be a major part of the movie, and if it is, I just hope it's better than what we got in this movie. So yeah, I enjoyed the movie, but definitely fell short of loving it. So I'll leave it at that.
Well,
So I
we're
am
gonna
I am very surprised that it's this high on your list.
we're gonna find out in a week because I think it comes out next week, doesn't it?
Yep. Yes, it does.
All right. So that puts us in our top five. So Venom, what's the big number five?
Well, let's just keep this Osgood Perkins train going with his second movie on my top 10 list, and that is, of course, Keeper. This is a movie that I feel like it worked for me a lot more than it worked for other people. The thing is, I absolutely love Tatiana Maslany. I fucking love her. Everything I've seen her in, she is spectacular in The Monkey. And even She Hulk, which I know a lot of people had issues with that series, I don't think any of the issues were with Tatiana because I thought she was spectacular. So yeah, Keeper, it's weird. It's a fairly simple story that gets kind of complicated in the third act, and I generally like stories like that, especially if they keep me thinking. I absolutely love the creatures, the children of the witch. That ending is, for a petty person like myself, that ending left me with a ear to ear grin. Absolutely loved it. And the fact that Tatiana's eyes are black for that whole final scene, just, God, chef's kiss, my friends. So, yeah, Keeper definitely falls short of, long legs, obviously, with long legs being my number one of 2024. I had high expectations for Keeper, and Oz still provided me with a very good movie, cinematically gorgeous. Again, his cinematography is second to none. His score in both movies. I didn't even mention the score in The Monkey, but the licensed music that he uses in both movies just absolutely I love. And the fact that Keeper ends with I fooled around and fell in love, I just holy shit. It just again chef's kiss. So yeah, my number five is Keeper. I know it's an incredibly slow movie with not a lot of kills, in all honesty, like maybe one good one and one kind of semi off screen one. So if that's what you're looking for, Keeper is probably not the film for you. But for me, it absolutely worked. Every performance in this movie worked for me. Even the foreign girl who barely spoke English, I thought she did a great job. So I mean, what can I say? Amazing score, beautiful cinematography. Oz Perkins does it again, and he does it twice this year. So yeah, The Monkey at number 6 and Keeper at number 5. It is the year of Julia Garner and Oz Perkins.
All right, Don, what's your number five?
All right. So my number five, I know I'm kind of one of the outliers on this one in liking it as much as I do. I really loved the original entries in the series, and I knew that this one was going to be a little bit lower, but I still really enjoy a lot of what we got here. It does a lot of what Clown in a Cornfield wants to do, which is present itself as the throwback slasher kind of a film. And I felt this one did it a lot better. I thought the characters were better. I thought the kills were better. I like the connection between the stories. I like the presentation of it. I like the way it plays out. It's fun, fast. It delivers what it needs to. My number five is Fear Street Prom Queen. Um, like I said, I know that this one's kind of, again, high on the list for what it should be, but it worked for me. I had so much fun with it. The killer is great. I like the reveal, what happens here. I like the connection between the various incidents and what's going on. I like the way that it connects with, the previous entries. It's not a clean, connection, but it's a good enough one that I'm not bothered by it. And yeah, a lot of the slasher throwback stuff that Clown in the Cornfield thought it was doing right, I prefer it in the Prom Queen. So number five for me is Fear Street Prom Queen.
I feel like if Prom Queen was a standalone movie not connected to a franchise, I probably would have liked it a little bit more. I probably would have been
Same.
confused with some of the story elements that would have been missing if you don't watch the original trilogy. But the fact that it has the Fear Street title at the beginning left me a little flat when I finished the movie. It's not a bad movie, not at all, but compared to the trilogy, where obviously the first three movies give us varying degrees of quality, but I just feel like um for the fourth entry in a franchise, especially one that took a couple of years off. So, you figure they're working on the formula, maybe trying to improve some of the kills, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, Prom Queen just left me a little flat. Like I said, if it was a standalone movie, I'm sure I would have enjoyed it more.
Um, I barely remember it. So there. I can't say much, but I can tell you what my number five is. This is another one that was somewhat of a late year watch. I had been trying to track it down for a while, and looks like for good reason, and that was Parvalos, Children of the Apocalypse. This one is dark, dystopian, lots of tropes for zombie movies that already exist, but also some things new, and we get a twist in the story, and what a bleak movie and outcome we get in this one. Also a specific like choice for the cinematography, which I don't know, I think it could into some people, but I thought it fit with what the movie was going for. So I'm gonna put that as a plus for it. And I thought it was a really good decision to do that. And yeah, I this is one that I want. It's screened here, but it was one showing on one night, and I think it was like a 10 p.m. showing. And I really wanted to see it, but unfortunately, that's just a tough spot for me to get to in the theater. And then for like the longest time, it just wasn't available. And then once I was finally able to watch it, I was glad. And you can see how glad I was because it ended up as number five on my list. So, Don, I know you've seen this one, right?
Yeah. It's I think on my overall end of year list, I think I placed it at I think I placed it at 4 or 5 myself on my end of year list when I saw it last year.
Yeah,
Nice.
this was I saw it too, and maybe I judge my Spanish horror a little bit more meticulously because if this movie would have been just about the kids and their parents and what happened to their parents, I think I would have liked the movie a lot more. But again, they got to bring in that element that every fucking zombie movie of the last 30 to 40 years has done. And again, it's that the humans are more dangerous than, the creatures in the world. And there's there's the set of human antagonists that show up at the end that just I don't know. I hated it. I just hated that whole element. And then the first human antagonist was the female that shows up, and it just brought the movie to a halt for me. Like the whole thing with her sweet
It
talking
is
the older
incredible. It is
brother.
too long. I will agree. I think it is way too long. I mean,
Yeah, it's a little
it
long, but I mean, I don't know. Like I don't have an issue with long movies, but it's just the human antagonist in this movie is what kept this off my top 10. Like this literally is probably in my top 15 or so because of the great element of the kids and their parents, but those human antagonists just brought everything down for me. The first one brought it down, and then once she was dispatched, I started getting into the story again, and then the group at the end show up, and I'm just like, oh, here we go with the fucking trope number 147 all over again, and it was exactly that. So yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't put this on my top 10 because of those elements, but yeah. Like I said, get rid of those human antagonists and just make it about the kids and their parents. And this is solidly in my top 10. But yeah, unfortunately, what can you do?
All right, on to number four, Venom.
All right. My number four is a movie that Mike has already discussed, who said he wasn't even sure if he considered it horror. And I say it 100% is. I just rewatched this 2 nights ago and was absolutely floored with the performances of our main characters. Not just the three or four Musketeers, but some of the more antagonistic characters as well. I unapologetically put The Long Walk at my number 4 movie for 2025. I loved every second of this movie. Despite it being a movie about 50 teenage boys taking a long walk, I was riveted. I was invested. Even with some of the shittier characters like Stebbins and what's the crackhead's name? I forgot his damn name. Buck, whatever. But you know who I'm talking about, the one who got Rank killed. I just every aspect of this movie, and even though I did read the story, and I do wish that they would have left some of the supernatural elements in, the fact that they removed all of them just made the story more grounded and just that much more powerful. So the movie relied more on its performances than any supernatural element that the story might have relied on. So, yeah, my number 4 is absolutely The Long Walk. And if it weren't for some of the great movies in my top 3, I easily could have seen The Long Walk being very high. I mean, when dramatic horror is done well, I think it's amazing. But sometimes dramatic horror isn't done well. I'm looking at you, We Bury the Dead. But then again, like I said, sometimes dramatic horror really works. I thinking back to like Cargo, that zombie movie with Martin Freeman, just that movie. I think that movie was my number 3 of that year, and I just absolutely loved it. I mean, they made a dramatic zombie movie. Like that's something that shouldn't even work on paper, but it 100% did. So yeah, same with The Long Walk. A drama, it's basically a drama masquerading as a horror film, but it worked. Every element of it worked for me. Garrity, DeFreeze, just all of these characters. I mean, you end up falling in love with like all of them. They're just, even like I said, even the more villainous characters, because they need to be there. There has to be antagonists of some kind. It can't just be Mark Hamill, shooting people constantly. So yeah, The Long Walk was fucking great. Great year for Stephen King, by the way, with The Monkey and The Long Walk. Good year for Stephen King adaptations. So nice. Let's keep them coming. The good ones, I mean. Let's keep those coming.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when I was talking about the controversial pick, I didn't necessarily mean for me. I just meant out in the general community. Like it seems like there's a lot of discussion about whether it's a horror or not. So it's
That's
more for
funny
the
because
people
most of the
listening.
oh yeah, I got you. I'm most of the YouTubers that I watch, like Spooky Astronauts and Chris Stuckman, like they had The Long Walk very high in their top 10, like right around where I have it. Um, what's that redhead's name? Amanda something. I can't remember. She's a YouTuber, a horror YouTuber. It's been around for years. Really pretty redhead. But yeah, she had The Long Walk at number 2, and I
Are you talking
fully
about
agreed with.
possessed by horror, or is that a different redhead?
No, that's a different
Okay,
redhead. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, either way, all the praise that this movie's got, I 100% agree with. Just a stellar, stellar film.
cool. Yeah, no disagreement from me. Um, Dawn. We're on number 4, right?
Yeah,
So,
I was checking my list because that's where I have it as
Yep,
well.
yep.
I was pulling it up just in case. All right. So yeah, my number 4. This kind of like Venom had with Curse of the Seven Oceans. This is my de rigueur Asian horror film of the year. It's not my favorite Asian horror film, but it is my favorite Asian horror film that we've covered on the show. It hits so many of my sensibilities. It hits my old school action fan. It hits my modern zombie love. It hits a lot of high end quality kind of a film. And my number 4 is Zayam, the Thai zombie film. Guy tries to rescue his beloved from a hospital overrun by zombies. So much fun. It's great to see Tony Jaa kicking a zombie in the face, or well, I guess I should say kneeing a zombie in the face. um, yeah, that's a fun mixture. Muay Thai and zombies is a really, really fun time. The dystopian environment could have been done a little bit better, but I have no real qualms with the story. It's a blast, and you know, ending is a little hokey, kind of has some ropey CGI, but it's still so much fun, and it hits all the right notes for me. It does everything that I want really well, and the stuff that it's not really all that. The stuff that doesn't do that well is stuff that I'm not really that fond of anyway, so I don't really weigh it against it that much. So number four for me is I am.
It's funny because when you started giving the description of a guy trying to save his beloved from a hospital overrun by zombies, I'm like, wait a minute, The Sadness came out in 2022.
I know.
But good choice. I mean, I did like Ziam as well. I love Tony Jaa. I love his action movies. So yeah, Tony Jaa and zombies. I'm there all day.
And I should clarify that it's not Tony Jaa physically in the movie. It's
Right,
just a
right.
guy with Tony Jaa skills.
Yeah, that the elbows and knees style of Muay Thai. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just to, we said it a few times just to, clarify for those that haven't seen it. Not Tony Jaa, but a man with similar skills, if not similar acting ability.
Yep.
All right, my number four is a movie that kind of hits my sensibilities. It's kind of long, well, actually not long in running time, so scratch that. It's slow paced, deliberately brooding, kind of creepy, kind of suspect, and then we find out what's behind everything that's going on, and we get some weird bizarreness, and then we definitely get some almost maybe unintentional funny scenes, but this is mixed in with a lot of good subtext, which I always love in horror and non-horror. I just love it, period. Um, and then we get a ending that's kind of like, oh, the main character gave in to what's going on in this village, and the cycle will continue and repeat. And that's Best Wishes to All, my number four.
Bad. That's a movie that it's been long enough that I barely remember much about it. I do remember liking it. I remember all three of us kind of being, on the positive side of the fence, but man, it's been so long, I barely remember it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one that I did rewatch because I remember liking it, but it was kind of like early enough to where like some of my memories on the more details had faded. So I think it actually went up in my rewatch, to be honest, because I do remember liking it quite a bit, but I probably wasn't. It wasn't a movie I saw right away that was like, oh, this will be a lister. But I mean, there's just a lot of that for me this year, so that's not abnormal. But
Mhm.
all right, home stretch number three, Venom.
All right. Well, this is one that surprised me, not because it's on my top 10, but because it dropped down a little bit. This movie was my number two all year. From the day it came out all the way up until my rewatches, it was solidly my number two. I did nothing but praise this movie. I still do. I still absolutely love the movie, but I ended up rewatching this one on the same day that I rewatched the movie that would become my number two of the year. And I just realized that objectively, one is better made, better written, better acted, there were multiple aspects of the film of my number two that I put above this one. but this one still absolutely worked for me. And in fact, Mrs. Venom even liked it. And Mrs. Venom is not a horror fan, my friends. We're not together because we both like horror. She is the sci-fi girl, but every now and again, especially at the end of the year when I do my rewatches, she'll be here and she'll end up having to watch, whatever horror movie of the day that I need to watch. But this one, despite its over 2 hour runtime, we both absolutely had a great time with this one. Loved it. I mean, we were talking about it afterwards, and that's something that Mrs. Venom and I don't normally do. Like, she's not a cinephile in any stretch of the imagination. But I know that a movie is above and beyond when her and I have a conversation about it and are still talking about it days after watching it. So, my number three film of 2025, which was my number two for the majority of the year, is Zach Kreger's Weapons. Weapons, again, Julia Garner, seeing her, kick ass again in 2025 is great. Getting to see Josh Brolin in a genre film is also amazing. And what a goddamn performance by Amy Madigan as Aunt Gladys. I mean, holy shit. Um, she was my odds-on favorite to win the Astra Award for Best Performance in a Horror Film, but the winners were just announced last night, and I'm actually not going to argue with who won over Amy Madigan. For those who don't know, and by the time you listen to this episode, you probably will know because the winners were announced last night. But yeah, Indy the dog from Good Boy won the Astra Award for Best Performance in a Horror Film in 2025. And I am so on board for that one. Good Boy is not going to show up in my top 10, but I absolutely adored that film. And obviously Indy's performance. But yeah, if anybody is going to be Amy Madigan for performance of the year in a horror film, I'm okay with it being Indy the dog. And despite a lot of people finding the end of Weapons almost funny, I don't understand what's funny about being chased by about 24 homicidal fucking kids. Like, I guess I understand, what people are finding funny about it, but to me, I'm sorry, I'd be terrified about 15. I mean, there's always that question, how many 10-year-olds do you think you could take? But I don't know if I could take 15, especially when they're murderous, homicidal, possessed kids. So, yeah, I personally didn't find the end comedic in any way. Especially once you see the end result of, Aunt Gladys's body after the kids exact their revenge. So this is a movie I could talk about for hours. And I think we actually did talk about it for a long time on the Fresh Cuts episode. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that and say I just fucking love this movie. And I'm very much looking forward to what Zach Kreger's got coming on up next. So yeah. My number three of 2025 is Weapons.
All right. Moving on over to Dawn for your number three.
All right. Well, fittingly, Venom mentioned the Astro Awards being announced last night. My number three is the winner. My number three is Good Boy.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what this does. I love the change of perspective. I love the creativity and the uniqueness of the concept. The idea is maybe executed a little bit too vaguely. I mean, again, we're following a dog. It's not going to really know what's going on, but I think it becomes obvious enough if you pay attention and you stop saying, "Oh, he's so cute." If you actually watch it, it does become obvious enough to where you can pick up what the film is intending. So I think it does well enough as a straightforward genre film to where if you didn't have the dog as a lead, you'd still enjoy it well enough. Set pieces are handled well enough. Again, considering the limitations of the film's main character and what's happening there. But yeah, hour and 10 minutes. Never complain about that kind of a runtime, especially considering some of the other films that we've watched this year that broached the 2 hour mark. uh, yeah, the creativity, the uniqueness, does something different and unique. And yeah, it's a fun time, and it handles itself really well without much wrong with it. So number three for me is Good Boy.
But he is really cute though.
Nice.
I know. I'm just saying is that once you get past the urge to quit doing that,
Yeah.
there is that's the thing is that once you've got to have a really, really, really strong urge to not do that because yeah, he is damn cute, and they have some really nice shots of him.
Mhm.
All right, cool. Um, okay, my number three was dark, depressing, visceral, aggressively grim, glib, and
Ooh, that's a
yeah,
good
kind
word.
of
Glib.
carried that tone throughout most of the movie. Not much to be hopeful about in this story or any of its characters, and that's what I like in a horror movie when it's done well. Doesn't automatically make it good, but you got my attention if you bring all those elements, and that's Bring Her Back. So that's my number three.
I
Back to
also
you.
enjoyed Bring Her Back. I do feel like it was maybe a half a step down from Talk to Me because Talk to Me did make my top 10 that year. And I talked about this on the Fresh Cuts episode. I was on board for this movie pretty much all the way through. But then once our antagonist somehow grew a heart, like she had a Grinch moment where her heart grew 3 sizes that day. And it just, it bothered the hell out of me. I want to see villains with conviction. I want to see villains who are willing to do anything to get to their goal. And it just seems like just when that antagonist was right there, literally had to do one last thing to get her daughter back. And then she suddenly grows a heart. And it's like, that just leaves me so flat. So basically, the three people that she killed in the movie died for fucking nothing, literally. So that left me a little sour. So, I mean, despite it being a beautiful film, really well made, some very disturbing scenes, like, the kid chewing on the knife, like that shit makes me cringe constantly and every time I see it. And then biting, when he bit on the countertop, just all of that just really left me cringing. But like I said, I want conviction in my villains. I want to see them either be evil the whole time or don't. This whole I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Redemption moment, I guess. Like I don't want to see my villains get a redemption moment. Fuck that. They don't deserve it, and least of all the woman in this movie. So yeah, a good movie, a great movie even, but just left me a little flat. That's all.
All right. Well, hopefully your number two pick doesn't leave you flat at all. So tell us what it is.
Well, it does leave me a little flat because Mia Goth is in it. Ha! Jokes. Anyway, well, obviously, I gave that away. My number two comes from my favorite director of all time, regardless of genre. I've said it many times. John Carpenter is my favorite horror director of all time, but my favorite overall director of all time is 100% Guillermo del Toro. And this year, he, of course, brought us a masterful adaptation of Frankenstein, which makes that my number two. So, like I said, folks, Weapons was my number two all year. But just a couple of days ago, I'd say like 3 days ago, I watched both Weapons and Frankenstein on the same day. And it's like, as a cinephile, I can't objectively say that Weapons has better writing, better acting, better cinematography, better set design, better sound design. Like, Frankenstein takes all of those categories. Um, and it has some great gore, some great kills, something that you don't expect from a Netflix Frankenstein adaptation. So yeah, I just from beginning to end, this movie is an absolute fucking masterpiece. It is now my favorite Frankenstein movie ever. And Jacob Elordi is now my favorite Frankenstein's monster ever. Sorry, Boris. I love you and I will always love you, but this performance just absolutely blew my mind. I mean, it makes Robert De Niro's performance of the monster look like shit. And that's saying a lot because it's De Niro. Like when Mary Shelley's Frankenstein came out, I loved that movie. I thought it was great. A little long, a little slow paced, but overall I really enjoyed it. But Jesus, compared to Guillermo's Frankenstein, Kenneth Branagh is like a college student trying to make a, senior film. So yeah, again, just loved every second of it. And finally, I like Mia Goth in a movie. It took this fucking long into her career before I finally like her in a movie. And yes, because she's not trying to be a sex pot, because she's very demure, very well spoken, just everything about Mia Goth's performance in this one. It gave me everything that I wanted out of Pearl, out of Maxine, out of Infinity Pool that I just didn't get from her. So yeah, my number two is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein.
All right, Dawn, number two.
All right. Well, this is another one that I've had really, really, really high hopes for. A kind of hit and miss with the franchise. I think it's kind of it goes up and down. I like the later entries in the series actually more than the original entries, but I firmly agree. I think this is the best entry in the franchise. I don't think there's a bad segment at all in this, and that again should clue you in. My number two is VHS Halloween. Um, yeah, four great segments, a fantastic wraparounds, and very little dead time. I love this. You know, I don't think if I was to rank the individual segments overall in the franchise, I don't think this has one in the top 10. But I think just in terms of overall consistency, I think this one has the others beat hands down. I don't know if it's been so long since I've revisited two. I think two is maybe the only one that I think would probably make any kind of claim against this one. But I still think that this one is, at least second best in the franchise. Maybe it's my favorite. But again, overall, there's so much to like here. The atmosphere works. The segments are fantastic. Uh, the found footage for so many of these is handled incredibly well. And again, even though it may not hit it may not hit like the high that 94 does, which has my personal favorite individual segment, or 90.
Woohoo!
Yeah, 94 has my favorite individual segment. I think you and I both know what that one is, just based on the interruption, because it is the same one based on that remark. But um, I think overall, in terms of consistency, I think this one hits it incredibly well. And Shutter, since they've taken over, I think it's been a little up and down. 94 was a hit. Good, not great, and I think the last wasn't. I'm losing myself here, but either way, just fantastic effort all around. Great stuff here, and number two for me, VHS Halloween.
I absolutely agree with Don as far as the consistency goes. This is easily the most consistent entry in the franchise. All four segments are great, and the wraparound is great, and that's saying a lot for a horror anthology. That there's not a weak segment in here. I will disagree with Don on one point. He said that there's not a segment in here that he would put in his top 10. I absolutely think Kid Print is one of the most visceral, guttural, most realistic, grounded segments they've ever done on that franchise. And it's hard for me to watch. Like even when we did VHS Halloween for our Halloween commentary this year, like most of us barely spoke during Kid Print. I mean, the things that segment does have never been done by a segment in a VHS movie. VHS segments are almost always fun, over the top, ultra gory. And this one, Kid Print keeps itself grounded in reality. I would probably put it in the back half of the top 10, but I would still solidly put it as a top 10 segment overall. But yeah, Don is right. Nothing touches Timo's the subject. The subject from VHS 94. No matter how many times I watch that segment, I have an ear to ear grin from beginning to end. It is so goddamn fun. It's like they took all the best parts of Frankenstein's army and squeezed it all in the 15 minutes. And I love that. So, yeah, awesome.
All right, my number two is a dark, horrorish retelling of a fairy tale. It would be Ugly Stepsister. We get body horror in this one. We get antiquated beauty standards, although I guess the subtext could relate or translate to even modern times and how it's treated. But I thought this movie was pretty flawless from beginning to end, no weak points in it. And shocked the hell out of me. Wasn't expecting so much from it. I mean, I think going in, I had seen a couple positive reviews, but it was still so new that there wasn't much out there that was said about it, period. But I was pretty impressed. So yeah, it's my number two of the year.
I love the Ugly Stepsister. I also look at it as a dark fantasy. It just didn't have enough for me. Like the body horror, I wish they would have gone a little bit harder with it. I also wish that they would have used someone who was actually ugly. Like, is it just me? I didn't think that girl was ugly. Yeah, she was a little doughy, maybe, had a few extra pounds and maybe had more like a girl next door look to her. So she wasn't like supermodel hot, but I just didn't find her ugly. And I would have liked to have seen them actually use someone who would be, like this girl probably would be considered ugly in Los Angeles in 2025, but in that time period, I just don't see how people look at her and think that she's ugly. So,
I think
and that's a minor gripe, honestly.
I think they try to do that movie thing where you artificially uglify them up at the beginning, so that way after she goes,
Yeah,
because she does like the nose surgery thing, which in the movie world, it's like it transformed me into a pretty girl, and really, it's like, well, no, it's just because of makeup on you to kind of make you look more homely in the first place. And then
exactly.
the fact, and it's like, okay, when because we do get like some nudity from her, and I'm like, yeah, I don't see like me personally, I'm kind of with you. Like, I would have zero complaints, but I guess in terms of because since it's following like a specific story, the way you said like Los Angeles terms, so I would translate that to this movie as like, well, it's supposed to be like a rich prince, I guess, going after women. So maybe they're trying to paint it as the fact that like, well, he could have like the pick of like all the top women. And so they're trying to take maybe, I guess, your average looking girl and like make her super attractive, appealing to like potentially marry a prince that could marry whoever the hell you want. So maybe in that sense, I could see how they're going for it. But yeah, in no way, shape, or form would I see this girl and think unattractive.
Yeah, exactly. Not that, like I said, that didn't affect my rating of the movie by any stretch. I just found it odd that this pretty girl is being called the ugly stepsister. But yeah, Mike has a valid point. So I'll accept it. I did enjoy the movie a lot and getting to see it in the theater too. It is a very well shot movie. It looks great. So it was well worth the theater visit. I was very happy with it.
All right. It's the big number one time. Venom.
And some
I think
honorable
this.
mentions.
I was gonna say, do we do honorable mentions first? Because judging by our list,
Usually.
I think we all might have the same number one.
Hopefully.
Maybe.
I'm just saying, I'm
um,
keeping track because I haven't heard it come up yet. So
I
I
would be
mean, I've
shocked
done
if it's not, because if it wasn't our number one, I would have expected it to be somewhere else on the list.
same here. That's what I was saying because I've been keeping track and I haven't heard this one come up yet. So I think we may have the same number one. So
Yay.
if we want to do honorable mentions instead,
Yeah, that's usually our procedure. We'll do our honorable mentions before number one. So, for me, mo half of my honorable mentions have already been discussed. Like I said, VHS Halloween was my number 11 of the year. It literally got I gave it the exact same rating as I did my number 10, The Wolfman. But the only thing that kept VHS Halloween off my list is some of the writing and some of the acting. Now, I already can hear people yelling at me, VHS isn't about great performances. VHS isn't about great writing. And I understand that. But at the same time, um, if more of the segments were like kid print, I don't know that I'd be praising the movie as much, but I definitely would at least be talking about the great writing and great performances, everything else. But it just, like I said, it just half a point off of my top 10 at the most was VHS Halloween. And then the other one that we've already discussed is Parvulos, Hijos de la Apocalipsis, or Sons of the Apocalypse. Obviously, Mike didn't have as much of an issue with the human antagonist as I did. The older I get, I feel like I'm having more and more issues with the human antagonist in monster movies. You know what I mean? Be it a zombie movie, a vampire movie, werewolves, whatever you want to go with. Whenever they interject a human antagonist, it just almost always, because it's almost like the director doesn't have enough faith in their monster antagonist that they got to stick some human antagonists in there too. Which, like I said, it's just a trope that it's starting to wear thin on me. But overall, I did really like Parvulos. The cinematography was beautiful, set design, all of it worked for me. And then the two on my list that we haven't discussed yet. The first one was my number one movie for probably 2 months of the year, from February until April, when my number one movie of the year was released on the weekend of my birthday, actually. And that was Companion. I really liked Companion. I feel like Companion suffered because of the lack of kills, the lack of gore. Though it did give me that great petty ending that I love, that vindictive ending. Another reason that Companion kind of fell short of my top 10 was the antagonist. The fact that, Jack Quaid, they've been trying to push Jack Quaid on us as a horror antagonist, whether it be Scream 5 or this one. And to me, he just looks like a skinny, awkward white boy that just, I don't see anything threatening about him at all. So the fact that he was the antagonist for Companion kind of, it made the movie suffer a little bit in its final rating. But overall, great movie. I thought Sophie Thatcher was awesome. Absolutely loved her in it. And honestly, even everybody else, like the other companion in the movie, I thought did great. Harvey Guillen was awesome. Obviously, I'm more familiar with him from What We Do in the Shadows, the TV series, but I thought he did a great job here as a gay man, which he actually is in real life. So it's not like he was barely acting, basically. And then the last one might be a little bit of a surprise, but this is my fun movie of the year. This is the movie that I had the most fun with at the theater. I expected absolutely nothing from this movie because it had been delayed. There was studio interference, blah, blah, blah. So I was totally not expecting to have as good a time with this one. But it fell just short of my top 10 at number 13 was The Toxic Avenger. Yes, I don't care. Yell at me all you want. That movie has some of the goriest kills of the year. Has Peter Dinklage as our titular Avenger, which I thought he did an excellent job. The changes to the story I thought were really well done. I'm glad that they didn't make Peter Dinklage's character, a wormy little, kind of nerdy character like in the original with what was his name, Melvin. I had endless amounts of fun with the Toxic Avenger. Kevin fucking Bacon as a fucking monster antagonist. I mean, come on, that was awesome. And even what's his face, the Hobbit, as Kevin Bacon's brother in the movie. Just my God, I just thought this was so much fun. And if you missed it, which a lot of people did, I think it only played in theaters for like a week before hitting VOD. So yeah, if you haven't seen it and you were a fan of the any of the original Toxic Avenger movies at all, I would strongly suggest going to see it. The Toxic Avenger sings a Motorhead song in the movie. Come on, what else do I have to say? And that's gonna do it for my honorable mentions.
All right, do you got any, Don?
Yeah. So two of mine were mentioned, which are actually two of the actually 15 and 14. Bring her back at 15. I like a lot of what it does. I think it's a little long winded to get there, and a little bit too bleak on my end. I think the finale could use a little, you know. I like the idea of where it goes, but it just kind of fell off a little bit for me. And the other one for me was Curse of the Seven Oceans. Fantastic stuff. I love what goes on in there. Just other stuff I liked a lot more. The other three for me, this one I was actually kind of surprised. I know I was maybe a little bit lower on this than I thought I was, but then I went back and it was actually one of the ones that I went back and rewatched because I had to do it for a podcast. Like I was supposed to go and cover this one, but the show hasn't. We haven't recorded it yet, so I haven't had a chance to like fully explain everything. But 13 for me was Until Dawn. I had a lot more fun with that on the second watch than I thought I did. Repetitive as hell, especially towards the middle, but I do like the setup. I like a lot of the atmosphere, and I do like the way it ends. Number 12 is Death of a Unicorn. Over long, but I think that's the main issue with it. A lot of fun, great kills, great mythology, great atmosphere. You know, rich old people get their comeuppance in graphic ways. How can you not love that? And number 11 for me, I know this was one that I really wanted to like a lot more, but I don't like the changes that it does. And when you hear it, you'll know why. 11 for me is Dangerous Animals. Technically, there's nothing wrong with the film, but when I have a killer shark movie, I want the sharks to be killing people, not being fed victims by a psychopath. It's just me. That's just the way I like my killer shark movies. And the film as a whole, there's nothing really wrong with it. It's just they present the sharks as a manner that I don't like. So, yeah, number 11 for me is Death of a Unicorn or Dangerous Animals. Sorry, looking at the wrong part of
I
my
would
list.
I would have liked Dangerous Animals a lot more if the girl in the movie wasn't a goddamn weapon dropper. I
Yeah,
hate
it's another
weapon
issue.
droppers so much.
Yeah, that's another issue. Yeah,
But I mean,
saying
as
that is
the performance of the villain was stellar. I thought the villain was awesome. Like he nailed his role absolutely. But whoever's decision it was, writer, director, whoever, to have this woman drop her weapon multiple times, mind you, not just once, multiple times in the movie, she gets the upper hand on the killer and then just runs away rather than finishing the job. And yeah, I'm sorry. I'll never understand that. I'll never understand how someone is held captive, witnesses this person kill someone, and then doesn't finish the job when they get the upper hand on the person. It irks the shit out of me. So yeah, uh, you're next. That movie definitely was not.
that
All
was my
right.
list. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. My honorable mentions. I didn't rank anything after 10. So I got Chainsaws Were Singing. It was like a horror musical that was pretty fun, pretty entertaining. I have Keeper. I have Cannibal Mukbang. I have Vosh Level 2 and Jimmy and Stiggs. Oh, and Together. So I don't have much to say about. Well, I mean, we covered some of those on the show. Vosh Level
Mhm.
2, I thought it was pretty fun. It went harder than like a lot of the Indian horror movies go. I feel like a lot of the Indian horror that I've seen on Netflix, they always have like a good setup and a good premise, but they always seem to fall short of like really going aggressive with it. And Vosh Level 2 starts off with like a group of schoolgirls jumping off the side of a building. So like once that happened, I was like, oh, like they're really gonna actually go for it this time. So that was cool. Cannibal Mukbang was close to kind of like stealing that number 10 spot. I thought it was a cool, quirky little indie movie, but there were just movies I thought that were better that pushed it. Jimmy and Stiggs, kind of same. Jimmy and Stiggs was vying for that 10 spot over Scared Shitless. It was very close. If I could have had like a code number 10, that probably would have been there with it because I thought that was super fun and super
Yeah.
inventive and creative. And then
I
Keeper, you
I
already
would
talked
probably
about.
put Jimmy and Stig slightly over Scared Shitless. I enjoyed Scared Shitless as well. But Jimmy and Stiggs, especially after you watch the behind the scenes and you see everything that Joe Bagos, excuse me, went through to make that movie. Yeah, or that's right, it's Joe Begos. That's right. We've been mispronouncing it for so long.
That's
that
right.
was the that
That was the big one. Yeah.
yeah, that was like the biggest thing I learned watching all the behind the scenes of that movie is that we've like every podcaster ever says Joe Bagos. You know, that's always what it's been. But yeah, then to hear him say his last name, it's like, oh, I'm the asshole.
All right. Well, now that that's out of the way, do you want to announce like the most anticlimactic end to our list show with probably all of our number ones? Venom.
Honestly, I am so incredibly, I don't want to say shocked. I mean, because this is probably the first, or oh no, this is the second time that we've all had the same number one. I think When Evil Lurks, we all had it number one that year as well. But
I mean,
I'm
Dawn's
very
is I would say Dawn's is kind of an asterisk because he only does Fresh Cuts movies, but still, I mean,
valid. But even amongst the Fresh Cuts movies, like I thought he would have put something like, you know, some of the foreign stuff that we did above it, and some of the more visceral stuff too. But I mean, hell, let's just go ahead and break the seal. I mean, anybody who knows me knows I absolutely praised this movie. It is my only 10 out of 10 for the year. Every single goddamn scene is masterful. And for on rewatch, I realized that, man, it takes about 45 minutes to actually get to the horror. And I started to think that maybe I shouldn't have this at my number one on a horror list. You know, maybe it should be Frankenstein or Weapons or something like that. But even that first 45 minutes, it's so well shot, so well acted, so well scored. I mean, the score of this movie is fucking stellar. And anybody who knows me knows how important music is to me. Like, I constantly have music playing at work, at home. You know, there's always, I mean, there's music playing in my house right now. It's really, really low, so the microphone doesn't pick it up. But I mean, I always have music playing. And what this movie was able to do with music lore and just culture and what music means to different cultures, like the Irish and the Africans and even the Native Americans, I'm sorry. This movie was 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and it could have been another hour and a half long, and I still would have just been ultra invested. I would have loved it. I mean, the movie has three separate endings, which I know a lot of people are, they're calling it like a Lord of the Rings type thing where you get more endings than maybe you should, but ultimately all three of them are just perfectly done. They culminate their stories beautifully. And I mean, hell, my favorite performance of the year, next to Indy the dog, of course, Michael B. Jordan as Smoke and Stack. So yeah, my number one, and apparently the number one of my co-hosts as well, is Sinners. Just, I mean, this is another movie like Weapons where I could sit here and do a dissertation on it that would take an hour plus long. How much I fucking love this movie, how much I love everybody in this movie, how compelling Remick is as a villain. The fact that the fact that not one person is killed in this movie, everybody is turned. They turn everyone into vampires, which supports Remick's the whole thing about fellowship and companionship and just, no racism, no sexism, no xenophobia, just we're all vampires and we can all be happy now, no prejudice, no nothing. And at its core, it's a stellar message, a beautiful message. It genuinely is, especially in these times right now with, our president and, dictators in other countries. The overarching message of this movie, it was something that I absolutely needed in 2025. So yeah, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, no notes. It is damn near a perfect film to me. It is Sinners. Ryan Coogler, you've done it again, and I cannot wait to see your next genre film. If you stay in the genre, because obviously this is his first attempt at a genre film, and he absolutely nailed it. So hopefully he comes back. I'm sure he'll be doing another Black Panther movie sooner than later. But yeah, Sinners, just I could watch the one scene, the music scene, the scene that I've been harping about all year with all the different dancers from all the different time periods, and it just my God. The first time I saw that in theaters in IMAX, I'm not exaggerating when I say my jaw dropped. It's not an exaggeration. I watched that entire scene with my mouth open. It was beautiful. It was very telling. It even had elements of sadness to it, realizing, that we're living in 19 or that the movie takes place in 1930s, Mississippi Delta. Just again, I could talk about this movie for hours, so I'm just going to shut up just for the sake of keeping the length of this show at a decent number. So yeah, Sinners, without a doubt, my number one. This would be my number one any year I've podcasted. It would have beaten Longlegs. It would have beaten The Sadness. It would have beaten Saint Maud. It would have beaten Hereditary, for fuck's sake. Hereditary, which I consider one of the best movies of the 2010s, the whole decade. I still put this movie above it just because of what it did for me as a former musician, as a music lover, as a minority myself. Obviously, I'm not a black man, but as a minority dealing with some racism growing up in Connecticut, this movie spoke to me on so many levels. I couldn't even put it all on paper. So yeah, somebody start talking because shut me up, please.
What he said.
I was gonna say any surprised on your number one, or did that cover it?
Nah, no, like I said, yeah. Did it need to take 45 minutes before we saw Vampire Fang? Maybe not. Did this feel exactly like From Dusk Till Dawn with its first act not being a horror movie, and then you get the crazy second act with a bunch of people stuck in a location where the vampires trying to get inside? Okay, yeah, maybe not necessarily creative that end, but I mean, yeah, the visual prowess, the technical abilities, the fun characters, the way everything kind of plays out. Uh, the action is fantastic. The gore is great. The score is, I mean, what he said. Yeah, I'm right there with him. My number one as well.
And Buddy Guy, come on, Buddy Guy. They got Buddy Guy to be in a movie. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Again, I need to shut up.
So yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, except I'm gonna have to throw a curveball and say my number one was Strangers Chapter 2. Okay, no, just kidding. It was Sinners, obviously. Um, yeah, everything Venom said's correct. I think the movie was flawless. I mean, even the non-horror parts I felt was flawless setup and execution to get us
Hmm.
where we were. I think the movie is strong because we get full multi-layered characters and story and reasons to care about them when they end up at the juke joint in the first place. Like, I think a movie that would just go right into vampires killing people, yeah, it would still be fun. Like, I don't discount the fact that, hey, you could give us a 90-minute movie where within 10 minutes vampires are killing people and it would still be a fun horror movie. But to me, a lot of times what takes like the top tier horror movies that, and if I use the term elevate, I know people are gonna be like, oh no, but I don't mean
Do it.
elevated in that sense, but like what elevates like the top tier horror movies that stick with me year through the years that put them along my favorite movies across all genre is they just offer me more than what your average kind of good horror movie does. And I think Sinners reaches that level because of I think it would be hard to do it without that running time and without that character development. And that's just
Mhm.
what makes it an incredible movie to me. This might be the first year because my one and two I actually saw on the same weekend. And when I was on vacation in Santa Cruz, and when I was like driving home and thinking about it, I was like, now this was still somewhat early in the year, but at the time I was like, oh, that's probably my one and two of the year so far. And I had no idea if they would stay there. Um, but it's just kind of weird that they happened because Sinners was like a wide release. Ugly Stepsister was kind of, I think it was like a limited wide. A lot of cities had it, but it wasn't like this big, huge movie. So it's just kind of a weird how I think this was the first year it's ever worked out like that, where I wanted to same weekend of release. But yeah, that's how it turned out. So Sinners, I mean, I think this is a movie that's going to stand the test of time because there's just so much to it. It's just there's so many great elements to it, and I think there's a little bit of something for everyone in this one. So yes,
Yep.
Sinners, number one overall.
Another 4K that I bought right away. Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, great transfer. Lots of special features, just amazing. An extra performance by Sammy in the special features that does not appear in the movie. And I'm not talking about the post credit scene where he does well, what is it? My little or damn, what the hell's the song he does post credits?
I know
I
what you're
can't.
talking about, but I don't remember the name of. I know
What?
the beat, but I don't remember the song.
Let it shine, let it shine, let it
Oh, this little
shine.
light of mine.
Thank you. There it is. Yes. But yeah, like I said, I mean, if you're a physical media collector, Sinners is a must own. Just and all the
And
special features are nice and short. Like there's no like 2 hour making of on it, so it's not like there's a behind the scenes special feature that's longer than the movie,
and
which I appreciate.
and not for nothing, but can we give it up for Haley Steinfeld, regular and vampire version in this movie? Because damn.
Absolutely. I've been singing Haley Steinfeld's praises since True Grit, her first movie. I thought she was amazing in True Grit. And I made the same complaint when that movie came out that I did with The Ugly Stepsister. Because the girl in True Grit is supposed to be an ugly little girl. That's what they call it. And I'm looking at this, I'm looking at like 15-year-old Haley Steinfeld, like, wait a minute, what? She's supposed to be ugly? Okay, whatever. Oh man, but yeah, I mean every performance in this movie, um, just and how often have you? When have we ever seen vampires get upset when a person gets killed? Like that scene with Ruby, and then the vampires getting upset because of what happened to her. I mean, that was a very telling scene. Like they wanted companionship and fellowship so much that they didn't want anyone to die. I mean, when was the last time you saw vampires that didn't want anyone to die? Literally. Uh, just man, I can't say enough good things about this movie. Somebody hit the stop button, or I'm going to keep talking.
Well, we almost have to stop because 2006 is starting off with a ton of horror movies in January.
2026.
Yeah, 2006. Holy time warp.
Oh my God, did I say 2006? I've been recording a lot today. I did a show before this, so I'm running on fumes. But yeah, 2026, I think there's at least like four, if not five, theatrical horror releases. And there's even
Yeah.
a couple that like probably toe the line between thriller and horror, where based on the trailer, I could say horror, but once I see them, I'll figure out where they kind of lie or look at how they're tagged on the internet.
Mhm.
But January is packed. It doesn't feel like a dump month anymore, to be honest.
I don't think January's been a dump month for a while. I mean, for we've been getting a lot of great stuff. I mean, we got just last year we got what, The Damned in January, Wolfman, the year before that, or I don't remember what year it was, but the year that we got like Gretel and Hansel. Um, I forget what else. Oh, I mean, we also got that shitty Grudge remake, that attempt at a reboot, but you know, yeah, I don't think January has been a dumping ground for horror for at least 4 or 5 years now. Like we get a lot, and because we get a lot, we're able to pick out one or two great ones. So yeah, hopefully this year we're able to pull out one or two great ones. I mean, from what I see that's coming, I have high hopes for Primate. I haven't seen it yet. I'll be seeing it on Wednesday. But we'll see. Fingers crossed. I mean, I'm one of those guys. I've said it before and I'll say it again. When I sit down to watch a horror movie, I want to like it. I want to like every horror movie that I watch, and I feel almost a sense of disappointment when I don't like a horror movie. So, yeah, fingers crossed that January is going to be strong, because for me, at least personally, it hasn't started out all that strong. But that's a story for another show.
All right. With that said, do we have any housekeeping or any new things we've recorded that need to be mentioned
I
before we
mean,
close the
nothing
book?
really from us. Just the latest episode of Creature Comforts again, where we looked at Troll 2, the sequel to Troll from 2022. Both were released in December on Netflix. So if you haven't seen Troll 2 or Troll, do yourself a favor and go check those out. Otherwise, I didn't do much recording in December. I mean, we didn't do a Christmas commentary this year. We didn't do a main show in December. So yeah, just really busy. Obviously, with me back in the retail world, December is our busiest time. So, hopefully, with everything calming down now, I'll be able to get back into whoring myself out to every podcast that asks.
Nice. How about you, Don?
Yeah, not much. Just there's two shows that I'm waiting on. One, I know what movie we're covering, or well, actually, I guess I should say I kind of spoiled it since it's going to be a talk on Until Dawn. Kind of a weird one that they'd asked me to cover, but oh well. And then the other one that is I'm still waiting on. There's been some I don't want to say troubling allegations, but there's been some rumblings here and there about what's happening, and I don't really want to go much further than that. So that one may be put on the back burner, but if anything happens, I'll let you know. As of right now, though, just waiting on the latest creature comforts.
All right. For me, I actually recorded today, the same day. I'm doing it's called 100 Years, 100 Movies Challenge, where you go 100 years backwards from this year, pick one movie every year. The only rule is it has to be a first time watch. There's no genre rules, no any rule besides that. And then um, get them watched. You have a year to do it, which is nice though, because 100 movies in a year, even if you just watched one like every third day, you're gonna keep up. But I imagine we'll be able to keep pace pretty well. It's myself, JP from 22 Shots, Lacey joined us, and then Tyler, where if you watch or if you listen to 22 Shots or their other show, the Sin Bin podcast, and it kind of started because Tyler, he's been doing this for a few years. He mentioned it in one of the chats, and I was like, oh, I'll do it. But originally, it with being a podcast. It was just, oh, I'll just do it as a way to watch a bunch of movies, some like bucket list movies, some Hall of Shame that like I haven't can't believe I haven't seen yet, and all that kind of stuff. Then JP got introduced and he's like, I'll do it if we turn it into some type of content. So that's kind of how it turned into a show. What we recorded was episode 0, which is kind of like we talk about the challenge and then we kind of breeze through our list of 100. So don't worry, it's not each of us doing like a full on preview. That would we'd be there all day doing that. It's just kind of like briefly mentioning our lists in a round robin fashion. And we're it's only going to be a quarterly thing too. So it's just kind of something fun on the side to go along with doing the watching itself. But that episode, I believe it's going to be available to put like on all our feeds. So once that's up, I'll probably throw it on our YouTube. And that's that for me. Yeah, this is one of those years where once we took our break, it was kind of like a true break because I didn't record nothing during that time.
Hmm.
Um, and now we're just kind of slowly getting back into it. But now that the top 10 show is out of the way and we're closing the book, uh, we start prep like all our regular stuff, like the main show and all that. So hopefully that'll be coming soon. Like Venom mentioned, our next episode will be on Primate. So look for that probably in about a week or so. And I don't know, that's all I got. Anything else from you guys?
Go to the theater, damn it. Support our genre. If you can afford it, of course. Don't go broke, but if you can afford it, support our genre. Even if they're bad movies, I'll still pay to see the Strangers.
Yeah, I mean, I would
But let's have
say
something else on the weekend so we were not forced to.
I
There you go.
would I would just like my plea to people would be like if you live by a chain, like a multiplex chain, and you see 2 movies a month at least, just look into their subscriber programs because I know like I pay I think 24 a month and I know like I don't know when you talk about paying up front you might be like I don't know but it's the price of like now it might be the price of a movie and a half, not even 2 tickets. I don't even know what the regular price is because it's been so long since I just paid for a ticket. Um,
At my theater, I mean, I have AMC A list. It also costs me 24.95 a month. One movie at AMC during prime time, like after 4 p.m. is $22. So for an extra 2.95, I get to see as many movies as I want. So yeah, for obviously for a podcaster, it makes sense. But if you're just a movie lover in general, I think it makes total sense. And Mike has a valid point. If you're gonna see 2 movies a month, why wouldn't you get the subscription? Plus you get
yeah,
like bonuses and uh AMC gives me like stuff on my birthday, like popcorn and soda and shit.
yeah,
So I mean, there's always perks with those things. So yeah, always
yeah.
look into it.
I rack up so much rewards points because I rarely get concession stuff when I go by myself. So what happens is I rack up thousands of points. So like the few movies that like my kids want to go see, I use them on like food then, and I end up getting most of it all for free.
Yeah, same here. I mean, obviously, I don't have any kids or anything, and I do see most of my movies by myself. But I am a concession buyer. I can't watch a movie without at least a drink and something to snack on. So I use my points. And the thing is that we have AMC dine-in theaters out here too. So I could actually go to one of those, and the food there is actually great. Like literally, the chicken quesadilla at AMC is one of my favorite chicken quesadillas I've ever had. That's saying a lot, and I'm Spanish, so that's yeah. A movie theater chicken quesadilla is damn good. My wife praises the burger. So yeah, like I said, I don't know how we turned into shills for the theater industry, but there it is.
All right. Well, that's how we're going to close the book on 2025. Thanks everyone for listening. It seems kind of weird because we did already officially do the first episode of 2026, so I'll kind of wrap it up in
Yep.
there. If you're still here, then buckle up for another year of horror movies on Fresh Cuts. And with that, let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
Take care, folks. Let's go see some horror movies together.
Yeah, let's have some fun.